Welcome all back to Scott's Sporting Corner. Liverpool have made their first signing under Andoni Iraola, with Victor Muñoz arriving from Osasuna for €40 million after Liverpool activated his release clause. Muñoz is a former Real Madrid academy graduate, and Madrid have reportedly retained a first refusal clause should he leave Liverpool in the future. This kind of tells you how highly he is rated. I'll be honest, I haven't seen a huge amount of Muñoz myself. But what I do know is that Liverpool need this type of player profile. We need a player who can come in, be direct on the ball, provide energy and quality, and at a reasonable price. Most importantly, we need players capable of playing 30 to 40 games a season and taking some of the workload away from the established stars. That's why I've mentioned previously players such as Jared Bowen, Harry Wilson, and even Crescencio Somerville in the past. Liverpool already have world-class players, but those players need support. They need players who can rotate in the team, maintain standards, and provide quality options off the bench. For me, when I look at Munoz, I believe right now, kind of his position in the squad would be kind of like a direct replacement for Federico Chiesa, but getting more minutes than Chiesa did under Arne. So that's kind of my opinion on it right now. But I am excited. It's the type of player that I think we do need. And yeah, let's see how we can develop over the course of next season. While Liverpool have signed one winger, reports suggest they've already opened talks with RB Leipzig regarding Yan Diomande, who is currently away on international duty with the Ivory Coast at the World Cup. An opening bid of €100 million has reportedly been rejected, but Liverpool are expected to return with another offer, which shows how highly the club must rate the player. Reports from Ivory Coast, should I say, his opening match suggests he performed very well. I also watched the Germany game, and he was directly involved in the Ivory Coast opening goal there. He kind of coming from, I think, playing on the left-hand side at this point. Got beat his man. They put Kimmich up against him, which I think was just barbaric, to be honest with you, by Nagelsmann. Got the ball in. I think Ahmad missed the initial shot, but then on a follow-up, it got turned in by Kessie. What stood out for me, like I said, though, is that we kind of need a right winger right now. But from bits I've seen from the Ivory Coast, like I said, I watched the second game. I saw the highlights of their first game. I've seen that he's played a lot from the left. But when looking at reports, it's just he can play either on the left, he can play on the right, and he can also play through the middle. So he would offer a kind of full how's the word I'm looking for? He can cover multiple positions. A bit like when we brought Jota in, he was able to come off each wing and play through the middle as well. I think it's definitely one to keep an eye on. Obviously, it's going to be a big price tag, but when we look at the price tag, I think it's more when Liverpool sign a player for a big amount of money. I'm probably going to touch on it with Adam later with AKM LFC. Is I think that it's not like we're signing £100 million player now, and I think that's the same with Florian Wirtz. And I think when we signed, Van Dijk at the time for £75 million, which I think was a British record at the time, that wasn't like he was a £75 million player then. I think they view it as if, like, right, if he's at the club for like best part of 10 years, it works out less than £10 million a year for Van Dijk on the transfer fee. And I think when you look at Florian Wirtz, when you look at Yan Diomande, if Yan Diomande did come in, I do think that that's probably how they'll view it. Is like, yeah, let's say it's €120 million, so give or take around 100 million British sterling. If he's at the club for 10 years, on the transfer fee, we'll be looking at a £10 million investment per season. Obviously, there's times it hasn't worked out when you look at players such as Darwin Núñez, Naby Keita as well. But I think that's when they make these bigger signings, like as in like profile, transfer fee, all that type of stuff. I think that's how they view it. It's like a long-term investment, and even Alexander Isak for me, obviously, is the best striker in the league. When you watch it for Newcastle, obviously we need to see that replicated for Liverpool. But I think that's the same with him. That's why he got a 6-year deal when he signed for the club. Is that it's a long-term investment by the club, not necessarily for short-term kind of improvement in the team as such. But yeah, moving on, there's another player who we got a report on recently, that's Conor Bradley. And we want to kind of touch on this, but also touch on the stuff what may affect like Jeremie Frimpong and Joe Gomez. There's been reports suggesting Liverpool could enter the market for another right back because Conor Bradley is not expected to be back until I think it's either late stage of pre-season, or it might even be when the season actually starts. He'll back, and I think that is just because they want to kind of protect him. Obviously, it's been a long time out. He has had injury setbacks in the past, so I completely understand the caution around the club when it comes to Conor Bradley. However, I just think the interesting thing is because of this roundabout entering the right back market to bring a right back in, I just don't see a world where you can have three right backs on the books because that would mean we'd have Jeremie Frimpong, Conor Bradley, and then whatever right back that we do sign. I just don't see how that can work. It kind of throws to the question: where do they view Jeremie Frimpong? Do they still view him as a full back, or is he kind of a specialised wing back, or is he even going to be a winger? But also then you look at other players. I mean, the things with Jeremy Frimpong, I've seen the pictures he's put on his socials. He really has beefed out, which is great to see because at times he did struggle physically last season, and it's great to see that he's put that work in during the off season. He hasn't been picked for the Netherlands, and it shows that while he's been not playing, he's been injured. He's working on his weaknesses, which is great to see. But when you look at Joe Gomez as well, he's kind of been like the backup right back at time. He's been the backup centre half and the backup left back. But with if we bring another right back in, that would kind of question where his position would be. Does that mean we don't sign another centre back because Gomez is the fourth centre back then? Like just a specialised centre back? I don't know. Honestly, I really don't know. It's an interesting one, and it did kind of cast more questions than answers for me when it came to where do they view everybody else's kind of position moving forward. But yeah, another story, should I say, what caught Liverpool fans by surprise was the Alisson Becker admitting that he missed games towards the back end of last season to basically prepare himself for the World Cup. And I'm going to be honest with you, it didn't really surprise me. I never spoke much about it on the podcast. But after Liverpool put together them three consecutive wins, which kind of effectively got us Champions League football, I think it was the Everton win, I want to say Fulham, and I think Crystal Palace, we kind of pulled away from that pack due to Chelsea dropping a load of points. Um, and any other team who kind of got close to that kind of top five, top four position, they kind of, they would kind of fall over themselves. But yeah, when we got into that position, it kind of felt like a lot of the players, in my opinion, the eyes kind of turned to the World Cup, which I don't blame them, to be fair. We didn't really have much to fight for then, even though technically we hadn't got Champions League football. Um, I'm not saying that they kind of stopped caring, but the intensity definitely dropped. And I always say there's a big thing in football and in anything. There's a need. If there's a need for something more than I want to do something, then the need will overcome the want. If you know what I mean. There's a famous story from back in the kind of Anglo-Saxon Viking days when the Vikings would turn up on the shores of the British, they would burn their boats simply because then the kind of they would want to conquer the castle that they got to, but by burning the boats, they then need to because they've got no way to get back home, and that would then make them even more hell-bent on getting that castle. And this is kind of what I'm talking about, kind of a weird example, I know. But at that point, there wasn't really a need for points. It was almost like when you see the mid-table teams who were kind of the famous phrase of, "Oh, we're on the beach now," because they kind of they've stayed up that season. They're not going to fight for European places, and we were kind of like in no man's land. Obviously, we had a tough run of fixtures in that last four, and you could see I think we only got 2 points out of it. Um, but yeah, at them comments from Alisson, it didn't really surprise me because he was kind of in training. Saw the picture of him training for a couple of weeks, and he wasn't in the matchday squads. And then you saw Salah come back for the last game of the season. Obviously, I know he was on the bench previously, but that was his first start back. Alisson was back in the team, plus a few others made it for the last game. To probably, I'm going to be honest with you, just to get the rustiness off ready for the World Cup. That's how I viewed it anyway. But talking about the World Cup, and there's one player I've been going on about on this podcast for a very long time. It's Cristiano Somerville. I absolutely would love Liverpool to sign him. He scored a cracking goal in the World Cup the other day, and he's showing exactly why Liverpool were linked with him during his time at Leeds. The talent and potential there is for everyone to see. He's direct, he's exciting, he's fearless in a one-on-one situation, has the ability to make things happen in the final third. The sort of player who could come into the squad and provide genuine competition while also giving some of our key players the rest when needed. Of course, Liverpool fans will also remember when he was at Leeds, he scored that winner in the last minute, I think it was like 95th minute, for us to kind of lose that unbeaten run at Anfield in front of the crowds in the Premier League. But yeah, from even back then, I was very much, how could I word it? Very excited we were linked with him. I was quite surprised he went to West Ham, to be honest with you, just from where West Ham found themselves. But I think he was the one who nearly dragged them to safety, and you've seen him now go to Netherlands. The goal he scored against Sweden the other day was absolutely fantastic. And yeah, I think a big club will come in for him, and I would love it to be Liverpool. Finally, I want to close this podcast episode talking about the kind of international, or I say international, the World Cup lads from Liverpool. They're playing really well over there in the World Cup. And one in particular what's standing out for me, maybe not getting the headlines like the others, is Alexis Mac Allister, who has looked excellent. One thing that I've noticed during this World Cup with Alexis Mac Allister's role for Argentina, he's been playing in a midfield three, but as the deepest midfield player in the centre, basically a number 6. It got me thinking, could Liverpool use him there next season, like we saw in Klopp's first season? Well, Mac Allister's first season under Klopp, I should say. We all know what we'd lose. We'd lose some of those late runs into the box, some of the goals he'd chip in with, and some of his creativity higher up the pitch. But at the same time, it could help manage his workload over a longer season, as he wouldn't be having to cover the distances required as like more of a box-to-box midfield player. Mac Allister is also aggressive in the tackle, he's intelligent defensively, and his passing range is outstanding. In games where Liverpool are dominating possession, I could definitely see him sitting in the base of a midfield, controlling the tempo and spreading the passes around. We've already seen him do it successfully previously, so wouldn't be a new role for him. The real question whether his Liverpool are better with Mac Allister in the 6 or getting him fully fit under Iraola and pushing him further up the pitch into his more natural position. But what would help is if we put Mac Allister in the base of the midfield. Is Ryan Gravenberch. He's been absolutely fantastic in more of a number 8 position, a more box-to-box position in this World Cup. I thought it was fantastic against Sweden for the Netherlands, as every Netherlands player was fantastic in that game. However, the Japan game, I thought it was even better. You know, he's got 2 assists, and the assist for Van Dijk I just thought was ridiculous. My one kind of criticism of Gravenberch this season, when he's played a bit further up in midfield, is I don't think his passing quality has been the best. He's fantastic at dribbling, but in this World Cup, we've really seen his passing go to another level. And that anyone who hasn't seen it, go watch the ball he put into Van Dijk for Netherlands opener against Japan. It was absolutely, I don't want to say, but almost like a Gerrard-esque cross from, or De Bruyne cross from the right hand side. It was great. And another player for the Netherlands has been fantastic. I said, is Van Dijk. He got that goal in the opening game, and he also got man of the match in there. But the one player who has really stood up for the Netherlands this World Cup campaign, compared to the club form this season, is Cody Gakpo. He's been absolutely fantastic. He got 2 goals and an assist. He's looked so confident and so direct. And I always say with Gakpo, he isn't one of them wingers who's just gonna, like a Diaz, who will go in and out and all this. What Gakpo is best at doing is picking the ball from left hand side, running kind of diagonally into the corner of the box and being really direct and firm, and then taking his man on. And that requires a lot of confidence to do that. And I think at Liverpool this season that he hasn't had the confidence to do that for whatever reason. We saw it the previous season that he was fantastic. He's got a registered best part of 20 goals, I think, over the course of the campaign. And I do think there is a possibility, given the new manager, how we know how direct and attacking he does play, and the kind of form we're seeing from Cody Gakpo during this World Cup, could he replicate that again for Liverpool next year? There is a possibility, but obviously we don't know if he's going to be in the market for a move. He's been linked with a couple of clubs. I honestly do not know, but it's great to see him getting a bit of confidence, scoring a couple of goals. I think he scored 2 goals in a warm-up game as well for the Netherlands, so that's like 4 goals in, 3 games, and an assist as well. So yeah, and finally I want to touch on Alexander Isak. He has contributed so far in this World Cup 1 goal and 3 assists for Sweden. He's got, I think he's atop of the assist chart right now. But what is key for me is his average touches per game for Sweden at the World Cup compared to his average touches for Liverpool this season. He's averaging for Sweden in the World Cup 37.5 touches per game, where for Liverpool it was 12.9. That is like a ridiculous difference. Is that what's one or two things? That's the kind of style set up by Liverpool, or is it the fitness of Isak? He's starting to come back now. He's got a couple of games under his belt. I don't really know, but it is great to see him getting more involved, getting some goals and assist contributions in there, and like I said, getting himself fully fit and firing for next season. But it's great to see all these Liverpool players doing well at the World Cup. It does remind me, though, how frustrating these international breaks can be for kind of... because we haven't seen these players play like this season for Liverpool. You know, international football is played at a less intensity. There's more time on the ball, etc. and stuff. But it is great to see that they are leading the way with the goal. I think they've got the most goal contributions, 12 involvements in the World Cup. But where I remember in the last international break before the kind of season ended, I think it was around March time that we did see. Well, I think Liverpool were going through a bit of a rut at the time. Yeah, well, we did most last season, to be honest with you, but we were in particular around that time. And the lads went away on international duty and they all played fantastically well. And it did kind of raise that question for me, wow, is this on Slot? I generally don't think Slot lost the dressing room, I'm going to be honest with you. I think he kind of starved the players of confidence. You could see the players were fighting till the end for him. He wouldn't come back in the second half at Old Trafford. We wouldn't, you know, basically how I'm wording it is if he'd lost the dressing room, you'd have seen us drop to where Chelsea were. You'd have seen us drop to where Tottenham were. I don't think that. I think the players really did try their best to get behind the manager, but I do think at the end the confidence of the players dropped massively, and them key moments in games when you're lacking confidence, you're lacking that belief. It only takes a fraction for you to be off it, and it can cost you. And I think that's what kind of we saw back end of the season for Liverpool. But it is encouraging signs to see so many players performing well and returning with confidence, hopefully fully fit as well for next season. So let me know your thoughts on Liverpool's transfer activity with Victor Muñoz coming in, and obviously the kind of talks surrounding Yan Diomande as well. And how do you think the squad is going to be shaping up for next season? And especially the right back situation, which is a very interesting take right now. This has been Scott's Sporting Corner. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. And yeah, I will look forward to speaking to you all next time out. Peace out.